නෙමේ මේ අවස්ථාව අපි ඔබට ආරාධනා කර සිටිනවා ඔබගේ අදහස් ඔබගේ ප්‍රශ්න විද්වත් මදුල්ලක් තව සුළු මොහොතකින් වේදිකාවට අපි ආරාධනා කර සිටිනවා ඒ සමග අපි ඉතාමත්ම හරවත් සාකච්ඡාවක් ඇති කරගන්නයි අප මේ සූදානම් වන්නේ. We are going to build a very interesting dialogue and that dialogue is going to be of our future and the future of our health sector, the challenges we have and how we're going to face those challenges. හොඳයි. මේ වැඩසටහනේ ප්‍රථම ආරාධිත දේශනය සඳහා අප යොමු වන්නයි සූදානම. So we'd like to very warmly invite our Minister of Health and Industries, සෞඛ්‍ය සහ කර්මාන්තගරු අමාත්‍යතුමනි වෛද්‍ය රමේෂ් පතන මහත්මයාටයි මේ ප්‍රථම ආරාධිත දේශනය සඳහා ගෞරවනීය ආරාධනය.
Thank you, Clifford. Good evening to all of you. Sri Lanka ප්‍රජාතාන්ත්‍රික සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ ගරු ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමනි අපත් සමග මේ අවස්ථාවට සම්බන්ධ වී සිටින ගරු නිමල් සිරිපාද සිල්ලා මැතිතුමන් වෛද්‍ය සීතා ආරම්භපොළ මැතිණිය වෛද්‍ය රාජිත් සේනාරත්න මැතිතුමා ගරු වජිර අභිවාදන මැතිතුමන් ඇතුළු සියලුම මහජන නියෝජිතයින් විශේෂ ආරාධ්‍ය දේශන සඳහා අද අපත් සමග සම්බන්ධ සිටින ආචාර්ය සමරතුංග මැතිතුමන් සහ අද මේ අවස්ථාවට සම්බන්ධ වී සිටින සියලුම ගෞරවනීය ආරාධිත අමුත්තන් වෛද්‍යවරුන් ඇතුළු ඔබ සියලු දෙනාගේ අවසරයි. මිත්‍රෝනි අපේ සෞඛ්‍ය සේවාව පිළිබඳව කතාව අපේ නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපනය පිළිබඳ කතාව සමග මැදී පවතිනක්. නිදහස් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ පසුගිය වසර 76ක කාලය අපි සැලකුවොත් එහි කිරීටෙහි අග්‍රමාණික්‍ය දෙක නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපනය සහ නිදහස් සෞඛ්‍ය හැටියට අපි සෑම කෙනෙක්ම හඳුනා ගන්නවා. ඒ නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපනයෙන් ඒ නිදහස් සෞඛ්‍යයෙන් විපුල ඵල ප්‍රයෝජන ලැබූ මා ඇතුළු මේ සියලුම ශාලාවේ සිටින සියලු දෙනාම දහමවීමට ලැබීම ඉතාම සතුටට කාරණයක්. අද ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ මගෙන් කවුරු ඇහුවොත් 20 වන සියවසේ මෙරට සිදු වුණු වැදගත්ම සිදුවීම සහ වඩාත් ඓතිහාසික සිදුවීම කුමක්ද කියලා මගේ පිළිතුර වන්නේ වෙන කිසිවක් නොවේ. 1945 දී රාජ්‍ය මන්ත්‍රණ සභාවට දිවංගත කරු අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍ය ආචාර්ය CWW කන්නංගර මැතිතුමන් විසින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ලද නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපන පනත. මේ පනතෙන් පසුව මේ පාසල් නොගිය අපේ ආත්තල සියලගේ දරුවෝ පාසල් ගියා. ඒ පාසල් ගිය දරුවන්ගේ දරුවන් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලවලට ගියා. ඔවුන් ලංකාවේ සමාජ පදනම ස්ථිරසාර ලෙස වෙනස් කළා. ඒ නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපනයෙන් විශිෂ්ටතම ඵල නෙලාගත්තු වෘත්තිකයින්, නීතිඥවරුන්, වෛද්‍යවරුන්, ගණකාධිකාරීවරුන්, ඉංජිනේරුන් ඇතුළු වෘත්තිකයින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සමාජ හැඩතල වෙනස් කළ බව අපි සෑම කෙනෙක්ම දන්නා කාරණයක්. ඒ සමගම අධ්‍යාපනයේ දියුණුව සමගම ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සෞඛ්‍ය පද්ධතිය විශාල දියුණුවකට පත් වුණා. 1948 අපි නිදහස ලබනකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ රජයේ සේවයේ හිටපු වෛද්‍යවරු සංඛ්‍යාව 500කට අඩුයි. අද අපේ පද්ධතියෙහි වෛද්‍යවරු 25000ක් සේවය කරනවා. අපේ හෙද සේවයේ හිටපු පිරිස 750කට ආසන්නයි. අද එහි 45000ක් සේවය කරනවා. සමස්ත සෞඛ්‍ය සේවයේ 1,50,000කට අධික පිරිසක් සේවය කරන බව අපි සෑම කෙනෙක්ම දන්නා කාරණයක්. එය සමග පද්ධතිය තුළ ඇඳන් ධාරිතාවේ 18000 සිට 90000 දක්වා වැඩි වෙලා තිබෙනවා. අපේ රෝහල් සංඛ්‍යාව වැඩි වෙලා, භෞතික පද්ධතිය වැඩි දියුණු වෙලා, ඒ සියල්ලට සමගාමීව අප නිදහස ලබන විට ජීවත් වීමේ ආයු අපේක්ෂාව වෙච්ච අවුරුදු 42 අවුරුදු 80 දක්වා වැඩි වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒවා ලෝකෙ දියුණුම රටවල් සමග සංසන්දනය කරන්න පුළුවන් මට්ටමේ තිබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා මේ රටේ නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපනය වෙනුවෙන් කරන ලද ඵල ආයෝජනය, නිදහස් සෞඛ්‍ය වෙනුවෙන් කරන ලද ආයෝජනය ඊටම විශිෂ්ට එකක්ය. ඒවා නොනැසී ශක්තිමත්ව වැඩිදුරටත් ආරක්ෂා කර ගැනීම අප සැමගේ යුතුයකමක් සහ වගකීමක් කියන කාර්යය මම ඊටාම වගකීමෙන් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී සිහිපත් කරනවා. Sri Lankan health system is a resilient one. Showed recently during the time of COVID pandemic, our morbidity and mortality rates were much lower than that of some of the developed countries. We acknowledge some 16,000 people died due to COVID, but at the same time we have to remember the fact that 1.2 million people died in United States of America. 235 died in United Kingdom. Another 200,000 in most developed countries like Germany and Italy. And also showed its resilience again during the time of economic crisis. We must thankful everyone who'd been spearheading our activities during that time. Despite many challenges and difficulties you faced, you came up to meet the challenges and ensured that our health system is safeguarded. It has come back to near normalcy within a very short period of time. It has bounced back. But we can't take things for granted. It's a high time that we go ahead with our health reforms and ensure that we protect free health system for the future generation of ours. So, මං හිතන විදියට අපි සෞඛ්‍යාංශයේ ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ කළ යුතු කාලය පැමිණ තිබෙනවා. එක පැත්තකින් රෝගීන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාව තහවුරු කර ගැනීම, උන්ට වඩාත් යහපත් සේවාවක් සැලසීම, අනිත් පැත්තෙන් සෞඛ්‍ය සේවාවේ වෘත්තිකයින් ආරක්ෂාගෙන කරගෙන උන් දිරිමත් කරමින් ඔවුන්ට සතුරුදායක ලෙස මේ වෘත්තියෙහි රට තුළ නිරත වීමට අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපාදන සහ පසුතල සකස් කිරීම. මම හිතන්නේ අපේ අභියෝගය ඒකයි. අපි විශ්වාස කරන අභියෝග ජය ගැනීම සඳහා විශාල පිරිසක් අපි සමග එකතු වෙලා ඉන්නවා. ඒකට අපිට අඛණ්ඩ සහයෝගය ලැබෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන් ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. පසුගිය වසරක කාලය තුලදී අපිට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සෞඛ්‍ය ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ නිරත සෑම කෙනෙක්ගෙන්ම වෛද්‍යවරුන්, හෙදනිලධාරීන්, අතුරු සහ පරිපූරක වෛද්‍ය සේවාවය, අනිකුත් කාර්ය මණ්ඩල සෑම කෙනෙක්ම අපිට උදව් කරා. ඒ හරහා අපිට නැවත ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සෞඛ්‍ය සේවා පිළිබඳ විශ්වාසය ගොඩනැගීමට හැකි වෙලා තිබෙනවා. මේ ගොඩනගාගත් විශ්වාසය ආරක්ෂා කරගෙන ඔබතුමාලා මුහුණ දෙන සමහර අභියෝග ජය ගන්නට විශේෂයෙන්ම ඔබලාගේ ප්‍රධාන ඉල්ලීමක් හැටියට වෛද්‍යවරුන්ගේ විශේෂ සේවා කාණ්ඩයක් හැටියට ඔබතුමාලාව පිළිගැනීම සහ අනිකුත් වෘත්තීමය ගැටලු පිළිබඳ අවබෝධයක් ලබාගෙන විසඳීමට අවශ්‍ය පසුතල සකස් කරමින් අවශ්‍ය දිරිදීම කරන්නට අපිට පුළුවන් උපරිමයෙන් අපි කැප වෙනවා කියන කාරණේ ඊටම ගෞරවයෙන් සිහිපත් කරමින් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම වාසනාවන්ත සුබ අනාගතයක් වේවා කියා පතමින් නිහඬ වෙනවා. සෑම දෙනාටම බොහොම ස්තුතියි.
ප්‍රථම ආරාධ්‍ය දේශන පැවැත් වූ සෞඛ්‍ය සහ කර්මාන්තකරු අමාත්‍යතුමනි වෛද්‍ය රමේෂ් පත්‍රන අමාත්‍යතුමට අපගේ ගෞරවනීය ස්තුතිය. අපගේ මීළඟ ආරාධනය ආර්ථික කටයුතු පිළිබඳ ජනාධිපති ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ උපදේශක ආචාර්ය RHS සමෘතුංග මැතිතුමනි ඔබතුමන්ටයි මේ ගෞරවනීය ආරාධනය දෙවන ආරාධිත දේශනය සඳහා.
සුබ සන්ධ්‍යාවක් වේවා. ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමනි, අමාත්‍ය රමේෂ් පත්‍රන මැතිතුමනි, අමාත්‍ය නිමල් සිරිපාල සිල්වා මැතිතුමනි, ඒ වගේම රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍ය සීතා අරම්පිල මැතිණියනි, රාජ් සේනරත්න, වජිර අබේවර්ධන ඇතුළු මහතා ඇතුළු සියලුම පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරුනි, ඒ වගේම සංවිධායක මෙම වැඩසටහන් සංවිධානය කරපු සංවිධායක මඩුල්ල, ආරායිත අමුත්තන් වගේම සියලුම නෝනවරුනි මහත්වරුනි, මම මෙම සාකච්ඡාවෙන් අපේක්ෂා කරන කරුණු 4-5ක් තියෙනවා. පළවෙනි කාරණේ තමයි අපි මේ ක්‍රයිසිස් එකට නැත්නම් අර්බුදයට අපි ආවේ කොහොමද කියන එක කෙටියෙන් පැහැදිලි කිරීම. ඒ වගේම පෞගිය අවුරුදු 2ක තුල ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ රජය විසින් අර්බුදයට කොහොමද මුහුණ දුන්නේ කියන එක පිළිබඳවත් ඒ වගේම අපි ප්‍රතිපත්තිමය තීන්දු අරගෙන ඒ ප්‍රතිපත්තිමය තීන්දුව වල වර්තමාන ප්‍රතිඵල මොනවද කියන එකත් අනාගතේ නැත්නම් ඉදිරි මග නැත්නම් පරිවර්තනයේ කෙලෙස් සිදුවිය යුතු කියන පිළිබඳවත් කෙටියෙන් අදහස් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න තමයි මගේ අදහස. This crisis has, the two important dimensions. In fact, there are two schools of thoughts, how we land here. The long-standing issues coming from, the decades. In fact, people believe that, the crisis has been in the making for some time. Because of the, the recent policy missteps, it has hastened it to, become, the crisis of, the catastrophic nature that we have been facing. These two schools of thoughts, of course, being discussed among economists and, the other policymakers as well, here as well as abroad. But in general, we know that the very recent policy missteps have, created havoc in this society and also in the economy. These were the long list of, the problems that we have been making for decades, without correcting it, and also postponing it for decades, that, the crisis has been, one group of people believe that, the crisis has been in the making for some time because of these reasons. You all know that probably in the press that, we have been facing, twin deficits. These not big concepts, the budget deficit and the external deficit between, the Sri Lanka and the rest of the world. That is, the external deficit. The current account, that's in economics called the current account deficit. The primary account, that is, the budget, part of budget deficit, which has had only, in 6 occasions during the last 76 years, we had, the surplus. In 1954, 55, 92, 2017, 18, and 2023, all 69 years we had, the primary deficit. You cannot run, the government of the sort that we are going through. Second one is, the current account deficit. We had only, the 4 occasions where we had, the current account surplus, which means that we have imported a lot of stuff on account of someone else's savings in other countries. We lived on savings of other countries. Most importantly, we have, we had, the Central Bank Act until 2023, which allows, the government happily to borrow money. We have, the very closer by printing press. Biagama, you ask, the governors those days to, to get money, he goes to Biagama. We have, the large printing press. You get, the money printed for you. That was allowed in the old Central Bank Act. The other one is, the welfare program. We have dozens of welfare programs. Many of these welfare programs do not have exit and entry clause. And also, we don't know where we have been heading. And that those welfare programs got enlarged day by day. There is no restraint. Every government has given, something more over the previous government. The other one, the overvalued exchange rate never, in most occasions, never reflected the real value of rupee. We, suppress it. Then most important one is we have, about 455 SOEs, commercial establishments, which runs billions every year. Losses mean that, that someone has to make the payment for bridging those losses. Basically, people have to put in, people have to, the what way the other, the bridge the gap by, the paying through, the various means, including, the raising taxes. The persistent loss making SOEs, about 10-15 big ones, including CPC, CEB, Sri Lankans, and host of other, the big ones. Nearly, if you look at, 2022, 2021, the losses were running into 700 to 800 billions of rupees. The other one is, this is very important one, the market rigidities, labor laws in this country, and also land laws in this country. There are ceilings. Labor laws goes, to 100, even the early part of British rule, the 1850s, 1840s, which we have not looked at. Those are in our law books, about 50. Many of them are, very old and, need, the revisions. The other one, the most important one in recent years, weaknesses in our governance framework. Those are, long-term factors which led to the destruction of our economy. This is what the people wanted to believe. This is how we had our government revenue stream over the years after mid-1990s. This has been going on secular basis until 2022. We reach the lowest 8.8, maybe the lowest in the world, which we didn't want to touch and look at. This is the twin deficit, the most of the years, decades, both budget and the external deficits have been, below zero. These are the very recent policy missteps, that we have. We believe that, that led to this crisis. In 2019, toward the end of the year, we had, the massive, deep, comprehensive tax cut, which we have not seen during the last 76 years or so. We lost about, the 4% of level of GDP, level of revenue, about 600 billion in that one go, with no other alternative source of revenue. We had to look to central bank to get the financing done. With that, 2019 December and into by the end of first quarter of 2022, the all three sovereign rating agencies downgraded to the Sri Lanka sovereign rating to sort of junk rate, which closed, the external financing abilities of central bank, Sri Lanka to raise external financing. The money printing has been, the huge, unbelievably huge during 2020, 2022, 2021, 2022. The numbers goes into, the trillions, which we have not seen in our history. The exchange rate, I have mentioned that, that we have, suppressed, the movement of exchange rate, and exchange rate in most occasions never reflected, true value of rupee. And also interest rate, when the money is being put into, the economy, knowing that, the inflation is going up, we never care to, the raise interest rates. The last one was 2021, May, government took, the sort of, the abrupt decision to convert farming into organic farming, the moving away from chemical fertilizer, that we, which brought, basically the farming community to the roads. The last two ones are, these ones were the government policy missteps. Last two ones, somewhat beyond the control of government, the Easter Sunday bombing and also the impact of COVID-19. This is what happened, after these policy missteps. We have seen, the inflation, which we have never seen from 1930s, even during the Second World War and the Depression, inflation rose to nearly 70 by September 2022. That was the highest ever recorded in our recent history. And the depletion of foreign exchange reserves, it went below 20 million by the middle of 2022 April. The contraction of the economy has contracted 6 consecutive quarters from whole of 22 and also the first half of 2023. Then, of course, with that, the many factories were closed and many opportunities for livelihood lost for many of us, and also created, shortages of, the many goods that should be imported to this country, goods which are not produced here, like petroleum and pharmaceuticals and, the few others which we don't produce here in this country, were in short supply. And with that, the whole country was in flame. Then what happened? Then, on the 12th of April 2022, Sri Lanka for the first time had to declare that, in popular parlance, we said bankrupt. We said that to the rest of the world, we cannot pay our debt, external debt. First time we did it in 74 years. This is what happened to our reserves. The green line is, the total reserves available by the middle of April 2022. It basically hit the bottom. This is how our economy had contracted during the year 2022 and also first half of 2023, which we have not experienced any time in our post-independent history. We have data from 1950, GDP data. We have not seen this kind of situation ever in most difficult times like 1953, the Hartal times, 1970, 1962, the army coup, 1971 insurrection, 1988-89 JVP insurrection, and also the most difficult time, tsunami. Even during that time, we have not seen, the economic contraction, and also consecutive for 6 quarters. This is what we did from the middle of 2022. Basically, May 2022, when Honorable President invited the IMF team to come to discuss about a future program, they were reluctant to come. Nobody wanted to come to Sri Lanka at that time. And we had the first meeting on Zoom. Only toward the end of June, IMF team came physically into this country. We had, somehow a degree on, the 4-year program on the 1st of September 2022. They promised 3 billion. 3 billion is not that big, given the size of problem that we have been, facing in this country. But, it raised, a lot of confidence among, the rest of the world and now the external financial community, including banks. Those days, to begin with, our LCs were not honored without, without support from, the big banks like, the HSBC, Standard Chartered. The external parties were reluctant to accept our LCs. In fact, the transactions are done on, the cash basis. We agreed on a program in which IMF wants, we knew it, we need to raise our revenue. Revenues hit the rock bottom by, the 2022. And with the crisis, any country with this kind of crisis, the group of people who will be moving into the poverty groups will become, the greater. Therefore, they want us to, for the first time, IMF recommended us to have, the good safety net program. Usually IMF doesn't look at those things, but only the World Bank. But, this time IMF said that, look at your safety net programs, improve it. And debt restructuring, the IMF doesn't, allow countries to have, the program which has unsustainable debt. When we had, on the 1st of September, staff level agreement, IMF told us, in fact, asked us to, to talk to our foreign government who gave us, the money, and they want us to have, the what is called financing assurance from our debtors. It took about nearly 6.5 months to talk to, our creditors, and in the first week of April, we were able to secure the final word from, the China, all others have, given earlier. Debt sustainability was, one of the conditions that, the IMF want us to have. Then building foreign reserves, we had only 18 million by the middle of April 2022. Of course, nobody has, this is, our duty to somehow, the raise, our reserves. Financial stability, when crisis hit, the first round, basically banks have, the banks find it difficulties to meet, the people's demand. Of course, the external demand. Therefore, the IMF wants us to look at, the financial stuff. Fortunately, in this country, banks run, the very conservative kind of program. Therefore, we didn't have, that much of problem during the difficult time. The governance reform was the first time, the IMF also wants us to look at, our governance, entire governance system, and for which, we got, the report done by the IMF as well. This is, by the end of 2022, this was our total debt. This includes, the domestic debt as well. In GDP terms, in 2022 GDP terms, it was 128%. If you have 100 rupees, you are 128 in debt. And basically half, nearly half, 50% is foreign, 50% is local. This is how we completed the debt restructuring program. First we did, completed in 2023. Second, official debt means cut the loans taken from, the country's official debt, which we have, completed on 26th of June last month. We had to talk to, the 18 different governments. Third one, important one, is, the commercial debt, the ISBs, negotiations are in progress. This is what, after nearly 2 years, this is what, the major variable look like. Inflation, 70% in September 2022, down to single digit, sometimes less than 1%. Forest reserves, I told you that, it was like, less than 20 million in the middle of 2022, April. Now it is 5.6 billion. Interest rates, it was above, the 32%. It has come down to, the 10-12%. Budget deficit, it was above 12%. There was some accounting problems as well. We take it as it is. It was like 12%. Now it has come down to 9%. This is the important one, the treasury cash flow. For the first time ever in this, for the last 76 years, we manage treasury cash flow from the money raised here within the country, of course, with the support of the World Bank, ADB, and IMF. We didn't print the single rupee on account of the treasury after the 15th September 2023. Therefore, the first time without money being printed by the central bank for the treasury, we ran our treasury cash flow. Primary balance, 2023 we had a positive balance. We see the 2024 as well. The positive prediction is positive. And also the current account balance, current account surplus after 1978. For the first time, decades after decades, we have the current account surplus last year. And GDP growth, I said that 6 consecutive quarters, economic contraction, economy has contracted from 2023 second half. Third quarter, fourth quarter, we had positive growth. The economy starts expanding. Of course, 2024, definitely first quarter is, first quarter numbers are With us, economy has grown by over 5%. This is the most difficult part for, anyone to run this country, This is what we have experienced during the last, basically, 76 years. We had very low tax regime, revenue regime, but we have, to spend more than what we earn. We had, the expenditure in this country in GDP terms about, the 18 to 20%. But, the revenue, even during the best time, during the last 25 years, we had, the 12 to 13%. You can't run the government anymore in that way. You have to have, if you have to if you have to continue with, the high expenditure, you need to have that level of revenue. You cannot enjoy best of the world, best of the both worlds anymore. If you have to run the high expenditure, you need high revenue. Otherwise, you have to get your government footprint to suit the available revenue. This is what overall policy direction is going to be. Already announced by Honorable President and the Minister of Finance in Parliament that we need to be we need to have the competitive social market economy. Of course, addressing environmental concerns, that's a global thing, and we need to convert our economy into a high performing economy at least by 2048. The time we celebrate 100 years of independence, we should be an high performing advanced economy. From today's terms, like the $13,000 per capita. By that time, it would be more. The policy direction in target form, we need to run the economy at 7-8% a year to reach the overall target of 2048. And trade to GDP should be about, this is a small economy. If you have to grow, the race, the welfare of people, certainly you need to grow. Trade should go at a fast rate, for which, you need to develop, the new exports. And also we need to import. We are a capital short country. Therefore, we need to import capital as well. This is what we are looking at our reform program, modernization. Agriculture, education, health services already, Honorable Minister mentioned it. Transport, power and energy, the reforms are underway, and most of the legal work has been completed, and that we need to reorganize the sector. Public service, international relations and defense. We need to modernize to suit the modern day requirement and also the 21st century economic requirement. The other one, important one, is factor market reform. I just said that, the labor laws are very old, very archaic. More than 100 years old, we have 50 labor laws, we need to look at them afresh. Land law, we have, the land ceiling, and also the ownership restrictions, the Honorable President has started, in fact, you may have seen, the Urume program, that is the real land reform, the giving ownership to the tiller for the first time after 1935. There are few other reforms, including productivity reforms in the agriculture sector, and also the investment sector. We have, an array of institutions and several laws which are in this particular area. We need to a unified law and also one single organization which directs, the importation of capital. I said already that, if you have to grow fast, we need to engage with the rest of the world. A small economy. Therefore, external trade is important. And also the importation of capital is also important. Tourism is, is growing at a fast rate. That is also an important area for us to grow. SOE reforms, for which, the law is underway. And there's, another law, public-private partnership, is one area where we can certainly import capital through. Future government engagement is in the form of PPP. Then the legal and institutional reform, we have, the more than 1,300 government agencies and many archaic laws, that we need to look at afresh to suit, the 21st century requirement. The other one is with the, the onset of crisis. We see, the rise in poverty level in this country in a very short period. 1 out of every 4 families are in that group. We need to, very quickly bring them down to some acceptable level. Digitalization to improve, the country's efficiency. I need not, emphasize this is, the generally accepted to improve, the country's efficiency in all sectors, everywhere in our, all varieties of activity. We need digitalization. This is one of the priorities in the government policy framework. This is what, the President has, done during the last 3 years to give, the policy direction. 2 years, presented 3 budgets. 2 budgets in 2022, 1 in 2023 as well, which has given, the broad outline of the future direction of change. And during the last 2 years, we have, this parliament has passed nearly hundreds of new and amendments to, the existing laws, and nearly half of them are to do with, the economic management of this country. This is what we have done, in the very recent past, the major key economy-related piece of legislation. Central Bank Act, which prevent us from, getting money printed for the government. The earlier it was, when Treasury Secretary gives, the Treasury bill, if it is not sold in the market, the central bank buy it and get the money through printing at the beer gum factory, which can't be done anymore from last year, September 15. That's very important piece of legislation. Second one, debt management. We don't have a debt law in this country. Debt was managed by, the various policy directions given by the cabinet. We have, now a brand new debt law, public financial management. You know that, our public finance is managed on the basis of FR. It's coming from, maybe several decades. Not anymore. We have, the new law. The procurement bill is now being drafted. Procurement also doesn't have a law in this country. We go on the basis of regulation. SOE bill, also at the, the drafting stage. Asset management, nobody looks at, the public assets, belonging to 1,300 organizations, land, machinery, factories, everything. Nobody looks at, we need, the asset management. And most importantly, the future directions come from, the economic transformation that was passed very recently by Parliament, and Anti-Corruption Act. People talk about, the anti-corruption. It has gone into, our law in 2023. This is what we look at in the future. Direction of change, the transformation. We need to understand we are a small economy, 22 million people, 84 billion economy. Small economy. If we are to grow, we need to understand who we are. And also we need to understand that technology is changing rapidly all the time. Demographics are also changing. Environmental concerns should be addressed by everybody. The world, humanity should address this one. We should also do that. And the interdependence of economies, since we are a small economy for trade, investment and tourism and technology, so much of host of other sectors, Sri Lanka economy is dependent on the rest of the world. We have to be mindful. Then the important thing is for this future generation, the sustainable development. It is development not only for this generation, for generation to come. And important thing, most important one is, the role of government, whether the government should do everything, that we have seen in 1970s, or government should limit it to certain sectors, like, the regulatory aspects, or going into, moving into, the real economic work. That government has to decide. Likewise, this change, future directions was decided based on, certain norms that was given in this Transformation Act, in the preamble. If you read, it's a very extensive preamble. There in this transformation was, the contextualized based on those things. 5 minutes. This is what is there in the act. It's a very composite act. So many things are there in one act. That is very rare in our system. We don't have very many composite laws. The many things in one piece of legislation, just like a book. And also for the first time in this piece of legislation transformation, many things have been given in numbers. Many policy directions have been given in numbers. I counted them about 20. Some of them are coming from the IMF. In this piece of legislation, we have the 5 organizations to build. I said that the most important are unified one investment law and also the investment to be looked at, controlled, regulated by one agency, Economic Commission, and also a host of other agencies as well, all working for the transformation. 3 areas we look at in transformation. We need to raise the level of well-being of our people. That's important. Whatever thing we do, we need to raise. Second one is the rapid economic growth. We are looking at 2048, for which we have to grow at the faster rate. Importantly, third one, we don't want to face another crisis, the avoidance of economic crisis. This is all what I have at the moment, given the time constraint. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The Senior Advisor on Economic Affairs to His Excellency, the President, Dr. R.H.S. Samaratunga. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That's reality. Yathartha, we went through a very dark patch, and now Sri Lanka looks very bright. And also, we need to stay positive. So, we want you, ladies and gentlemen, now to focus on something very important. This focus is about positivity, dhanatmaka bhavi. Right. Now this positivity is very important because in the most extreme negative cases, if you have positivity in you, that negative environment can be turned into positive. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be positive. And this is in fact a song which is called Positive Sri Lankak. Positive Sri Lankavak. ඒ ගීතය කියන්න වේදිකාවට දක්ෂ ගායන ශිල්පිනියකටයි මේ ආරාධනය. So we're going to invite Erandi Madhushika on stage. She has a very special song for you. Let's put our hands together for Erandi Madhushika, Positive Sri Lankavak. අපි එමනම් ෆෝකස් කරලා හොඳ පොසිටිව් අත්ප්‍රසන්නාදයක් ලබා දෙමු එරන්දි මදුෂිකාට. thank you very much. positive ශ්‍රී ලංකාවක්. අඳුරට සාප කරන්න එපා. අඳුර දැක්කාම ඔබ කළ යුත්තේ පුංචි එළියක් දල්වන්න. Be the change that you want to see. So that's how we can definitely make Sri Lanka or any environment that we are in positive. Okay, we're now getting ready for a very interesting discussion with that Sakacha Karannai me Vidikawe api pasudima Sakasanne. So we have the pleasure of inviting four very important people to take their seats for this very interesting panel discussion that we're going to have. Garu Ranil Wickramasinghe Janapattumani. Right. So we're going to have a slight change to the program. Our chief guest speech was to be after this panel discussion, but we're going to switch those two items. So we're going to very warmly invite our chief guest to address the gathering. Apage gauruniya ආරාධනය ශ්‍රී ලංකා ප්‍රජාතාන්ත්‍රික සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ ජනාධිපතිතුමනි ගරු රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමන්ටයි මේ ගෞරවනීය ආරාධනය උත්සව සභාව ඇමතීම සඳහා.
Honorable Ministers, members of the honorable members of Parliament, members of the medical profession and friends. I'm sorry that I had to change the order as far as the program is concerned because I have to attend two more functions for the day. I have been asked to give a speech and to take some questions. I thought I'll do the other way around. Ask the question, then if necessary, I will say something after that. Open to you. 3 questions.
Sir, I think I have been asking this question from you various times. So, you know that there's a brain drain is in this country because of this economic status. So, one reason for the brain drain, you know, our taxation system is a bit high for to us to tolerate. So, I think somehow the country has come to a certain sort of stable economic status. So I would like to ask on behalf of all our members, so how are we going to face this brain drain at the one thing, and the other thing, the taxation is, I think I may have told you one previous occasion also a bit of a too high for us to bear. So is there any, because of this economic stability, is there any way to reduce the percentage of tax which is implemented on the professionals?
No, firstly, in regard to the brain drain, I mean, it's because people want to educate their children, the resource, or they want to earn far more money than they can do here, they will go abroad. That is going to take place whether we like it or not. Our only way is to keep training more and more people. At some stage, even about 3-4 years, you would find that the numbers will reduce. But for professionals and others, until we have a good higher education system, we cannot expect all of them to be here in the country. The only way that you could earn money is to go out at least for some period, and people want to educate their children. Secondly, we still have, as Dr. Samaratunga will say, a long way to go to stabilize ourselves. We were lucky this year because we moved fast, but there are certain benchmarks to be met, including the revenues to be raised. This is why we went through a system of taxation which included increase in VAT and also the adjustments in the pay tax. Of course, we were able to collect the revenue that was needed, leading to a strengthening of rupee. But still, we have some way to go. It has to be now by expansion of the economy and expansion of the tax net. As far as you all are concerned, we did have provision in our agreement when we introduced this to review it at the end of the year. Now it's gone on. The IMF also came. There have been discussions with cross-section of people, and there are amendments. In principle, we have decided to amend it. We have put our proposals forward, they have put their proposals forward, so we will have to come to some agreement with them. But it will mainly be in regard to the slabs when it operates and maybe larger slabs that come in. Rest I cannot say yet, because as you go on only year by year that you will find some relief. What has happened is that when we started out in 2019, the rupee was 185 for a dollar, and then it went to 370. When we stabilized it, it's been at 300. But far as your earnings were concerned, it was still at the old level. This is why we are, on one hand, we have brought in measures by strengthening the rupee. You've been able to give some relief on prices. The other is implementing the Uday Seniratna report, which will also add something. Still there will be a gap which we hope in the next year or so to sort out. But if you look at Greece, they cut the salaries by half and it took them 10 years. I don't want that to happen. I think we've kept where it is. Now it's a question of raising the salaries and also strengthening the rupee so the goods become more affordable. And it hit a lot of people, especially the lower middle class in the urban areas are the worst hit. If you look at the expenditure they have, it's difficult, and that's why we are trying to make the all adjustments that we can. But every year there will be adjustments, next year also, hopefully. Not the best answer I can give you, but I've told you what the situation of the patient is.
Thank you for the opportunity for asking a question, sir. This is a question with less monetary burden. Historically, when you take the doctors and medical specialists, they have been in a better position. But we have been representing you on previous occasion also. But due to various changes in the salary structure and the service structure categorization, doctor status have been brought down due to various ad hoc changes. And now today's topic is Doctors for Healthy Future, and any human resource manager knows the employee satisfaction is important to implement any health policies. So sir, on behalf of the doctors, I request if you can make a policy decision, which we are, at the moment we are working on it through the health ministry. If you can make a policy decision to restore the doctors' designation status in the public sector back to the original status, where it has been since independence. We are not asking anything new. We want it to be restored. So we had made representation to you also previously, and currently also with the Honorable Minister's advice in the Health Ministry, and then with Dr. Samaratunga also is aware about that. We have been working on it, but finally we want it to be implemented as a policy decision. The monetary part of it can be implemented with the economic recovery, but as a policy decision, the restoration of status, because especially when we compare to the judiciary, especially during, I think so, your government, during the Yahapanla government, the judiciary got a better deal, and we were relatively we went down, and the academics also got a better deal. We relatively went down. So you want our status to be restored in par with our parallel grade, status-wise, and the monetary benefit can be achieved with the recovery of the economy. Thank you, sir.
The status is something we are going into, but I thought monetary issues are also tied up with status. So that's another issue that comes up. There's also claims by some of the other branches also. We have become one full unified system, unlike other countries where doctors, engineers were treated and others were all treated separately. We brought the whole government service together. This is the issue that we have. But certainly the matters are receiving attention, I would say. The question is whether you put gradual reforms or you change the structure immediately. But there can be an outcry on that. So we'll have to have some rounds of discussions with all of you. But there have also been other claims by others, I must say.
Sir, another small question. When Dr. Samaratunga was giving his talk, he mentioned about more than 100 years old labor laws, and I think you have sort of introduced a lot of new laws to the country which were very old. So I think you are aware that the current medical ordinance is more than 100 years old. Okay? And then, of course, at this point, through the Sri Lanka Medical Council, we have basically in the process of drafting a new medical act which is suitable for the current world trends, local trends, and then, of course, that is in the process of finalization. I request the help from the Minister of Health, from you, when it comes for the necessary approvals to get it. That is, of course, one of the most important things in health reforms for the future. Thank you, sir.
As far as your medical act is concerned, yes, the ministry will help. We want to modernize that. In fact, I feel that we should have a Health Services Act which will cover all aspects of the health services that are being given by the state and by the private sector, and bring in standards. Our health hospital laws all are very, very old-fashioned and virtually outdated. So the whole system has to be basically modernized, and it will take you a few years to go through that. When you come to the next issue, what should our health service be? I think we've got to address that now. What are the financing of it? What is the funding of it? What is the health service to be? And it will become more complex as we go along. And the age structure comes in, there will be more senior citizens. So it may be time for us to look at our overall health service and our structure of the government service to look what modernization is required. What's the role of the private hospitals? What's the role of the government hospitals? And complaints of the provincial council that you all want all the hospitals taken away from the provincial councils and brought under the central government. So I think it may be worthwhile having a full review, and then in one go look at what we are going for, take the decisions and implement it stage by stage. We should have a good health service. That's what I am committed to, but I know it will take you 10-15 years to build up. Let's do that. Remuneration, all that comes in. I know the problems you all face being in the government service. Remuneration is something that's felt to be insufficient, but we've got to handle it. Maybe the crisis has thrown up issues which we have been ignoring. So now that we can sit down and go at it. What do the younger doctors have to do? So that's what we will have to really sit down, and I think we should all, the profession should get together and talk it over. Maybe you want a commission to be appointed, something, we can even do that and get the report out within a year or so. Since there are no other questions, I was wondering whether I should leave immediately or say a few words. I took over the country when there was no one else. And I did that very fast, because in this game there should be no vacuum as far as power is concerned. It must flow from one to another. If you create a vacuum, you are going to serious trouble. And that's what has happened in Bangladesh. They allowed a vacuum to develop, and that vacuum cannot be filled. Everyone is now getting into that and burn something when they feel like it, either before dinner or after dinner. It depends on the mood that they are in. Actually, this was the problem of Sri Lanka, that in the first round, after Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned, there was a complete vacuum. And I thought I should at least fill it up and make a go at it. Felt it could be done, to be tackled. Second time was to ask for a committee headed by the Speaker to run the government. That also would not have worked. So I acted as Prime Minister in the absence of the President and took power. So remember one thing, that you must never have a vacuum in power. It must legally be passed from one to another. So then we took the necessary steps. What we have achieved now is, Dr. Samarath, we have stabilized the economy, but we really got to strengthen it, establish it. You say in Sinhalese, tahuru karan. And the other is that we have to earn more money. If our GDP increases, your salaries increase. So how do we do that? The first is, we must move towards an export-oriented economy. There is no other way out. So everyone has to look at exports. The whole medical service should be one in which, while we cater to our people, a surplus is earned by catering outside to other patients. That's why I want to see a good health service develop, both for our people and for out. Otherwise, all these issues can never be resolved with the internal, the way the GDP develops up. We have to go for about 7-8% growth over a period of time. And we are looking at new sectors. I am looking at modernizing agriculture, bringing smart agriculture, which also means that the rural poverty will cease. People will be more prosperous. We have to bring the supply network, the cold stores, the whole thing, but it should be for exports. If the global population is going to increase from 7 to 9 billion, why don't we look at feeding 20 million? It's just 1%. The world will need food. It will keep needing food. And those who produce it, and produce it at a very competitive rate. The shortest one, while we do this, and we have about another 300,000 acres that can be opened out. While we do this, we have to double the number of tourists coming in and increase earning per head from $150 to $400. That will in the short term give a big boost to the economy. While we get our investment zones ready, the digital economy, the sustainable energy, all those are there. Think anew and go ahead. So if you make your economy an export-oriented economy, if you have a digital economy, a green economy, knowledge-based economy, and you are modernizing your agriculture sector, just imagine the changes you will have in this country. It's far-reaching changes. Combined with that, we will stabilize the rupee, reduce, control inflation, and then see your incomes grow. So the country grows and you grow. And into that, the other proposals that come in. Aswasuma, which is functioning now. Urumea, where you are getting freehold land, 2 million people are going to become owners in the country in the next 3-4 years. Then we are converting line rooms into villages, and the people will have their own plots of land. Empowerment of women, Women's Empowerment Act. We want to bring the Social Justice Commission. So look at all the social changes that he is going to trigger off. And the new anti-corruption agenda, which have been done for us by the IMF, it will take another year and plus to pass all the laws, to implement it. So then ensuring the representation of women and youth in the Pradesh Sabhas and in the provincial councils, and we appointed the former Chief Justice Depp to go into the elections and the party systems. They made 87 recommendations, implementing them. All that will bring about a vast economic change, social change, and a political change, which should be for the better. So I'm looking at the system has collapsed, the political system has collapsed. We couldn't provide leadership in a crisis. The economy collapsed, which are based on this political theory, and social system come apart. We have to put everything together. So, Puluwan Sri Lanka is bringing all those sectors together to create a new Sri Lanka. The word I will use for it is not Venezuela. Venezuela can be anything, Perelia. That's what we have to do as we go along. And that has to be done not by some of us, we can kick it off, but the younger generation who is waiting to take over. But in that, let's move forward, looking at a better Sri Lanka and realizing that we will need another year or plus to get over this, and valuing the services that you all are rendering at a difficult time under difficult circumstances. I know what it is. We have to thank you because you are keeping the country going. You kept the country going for 2 years, and you will keep the country. There will be times you will agree, there will be times when the government will disagree with you, but nevertheless, you are running an important service, and what I want to do is certainly ensure you have better prospects here and better remuneration. Let's rebuild the economy and each one take the share that is due to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Guest, sir. Thank you very much. In fact, we got innovative and we were able to combine the discussion, that is meaning your questions, and also our Chief Guest speech into one segment. So we'd like to say a very big thank you to the Honorable Ranil Wickramasinghe, the President of the Democratic Social Republic of Sri Lanka. Thank you for being present here this evening in the midst of your very busy schedule. And once again, our heartfelt thanks going out to the Honorable Ranil Wickramasinghe, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, our Chief Guest. Yes, we had the two sectors highlighted. One was, in fact, the health sector, which was highlighted by the Honorable Dr. Ramesh Patiruna, and also we had Dr. R.H.S. Samaratunga taking us through the economic side, and these two cannot be taken in two different entities. These two entities are interconnected. So we were able to enlighten ourselves on reality, and also we know that you as consultants, specialists, doctors and people in the medical fraternity, representing all sectors of the medical fraternity, you're here in the midst of your very busy schedule. Thank you very much for being present here this evening, and we'd like to wish you a very pleasant evening ahead. Ayubowan. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.